I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, adjusting the worn collar of my faded plaid shirt. The fabric had seen better days, probably 10 years better, if I'm being honest. My reflection stared back at me. A man of 63, gray hair slightly unkempt, hands calloused from decades of work. To anyone looking at me right now, I appeared to be exactly what I wanted them to see, a retired tradesman living modestly on a pension. But let me tell you who I really am. My name is Robert Chen, and I've spent the last 40 years building something most people never see. Not buildings or roads, though I started there. I built wealth. Quiet, invisible wealth. The kind that doesn't announce itself with luxury cars or designer clothes. The kind that sits in carefully managed investment portfolios, real estate holdings, and municipal bonds, generating roughly $135,000 every month without me lifting a finger. My wife Margaret passed away 8 years ago. Cancer took her too soon, at 57. We never had the chance to enjoy our success together the way we'd planned. After she died, I made a choice. I wouldn't change my lifestyle. I'd continue living in our modest bungalow in North Vancouver, driving my 12-year-old Honda Civic, shopping at discount grocery stores. Margaret and I had lived frugally while building our wealth. It felt wrong to change that now, like I'd be betraying her memory. My son David never knew the full extent of what I'd built. He knew I'd worked in construction, eventually started my own contracting company, sold it when I retired. He knew I was comfortable, but comfortable and wealthy are two very different things, and I'd never corrected his assumption. David had earned his own success. He's a corporate lawyer at a prestigious firm in Toronto, making well over $200,000 a year. I was proud of him. He'd built his career without my money, on his own merit. 3 weeks ago, David called with news that both thrilled and concerned me. Dad, Allison and I are getting married. I'd met Allison Richardson twice. Both times, she'd been polite but distant. I'd noticed the way her eyes had flickered over my worn shoes, my dated jacket. I'd noticed the almost imperceptible tightening around her mouth when David mentioned I still lived in the same house where he grew up. But David loved her, so I smiled and congratulated them warmly. That's wonderful news, son. When's the big day? We're thinking June. But Dad, before that, Allison's parents want to meet you properly. They're hosting an engagement dinner at the Belmont Club next Saturday, 7 o'clock. It's kind of a big deal. Her whole family will be there. The Belmont Club. I knew it well. I'd attended a charity gala there 2 years ago when I'd anonymously donated $50,000 to the Vancouver Children's Hospital. White tablecloths, crystal chandeliers, entrees starting at $80. Not the kind of place my son thought his father could afford. I'll be there, I told him. Great. And Dad? David's voice carried a note of awkward hesitation. Maybe. Could you maybe dress nicely? Nothing fancy. Just, nice pants, a collared shirt. Allison's parents are kind of traditional. First impressions matter. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Of course, son, I understand. But as I hung up, I wondered if he really understood. Was my son embarrassed by me? Or had Allison expressed concern about her future father-in-law showing up, looking like someone who couldn't afford the valet parking? I spent the week thinking about that conversation, about David's careful tone, about the underlying message. Don't embarrass me. By Wednesday, I'd made my decision. If they wanted to judge me by my appearance, I'd give them exactly what they expected to see. I'd wear my most threadbare clothes, play the part of the struggling retiree, and watch how they treated me. Call it a test. Call it deception. I called it necessary. Because if my son was marrying into a family that measured worth by wallet size, I needed to know now. Saturday arrived cold and drizzly, typical Vancouver November weather. I pulled out the outfit I'd selected, a plaid flannel shirt with a small stain near the pocket, khaki pants that had gone shiny at the knees, and my old work boots cleaned, but obviously worn. I deliberately didn't shave. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like a man who'd worked hard all his life and had just enough pension to get by. Perfect. I drove downtown in my Honda, the windshield wipers squeaking slightly. The Belmont Club sat on West Georgia Street, all understated elegance and old money. I pulled up to the valet station. The young attendant's face flickered with barely concealed surprise as I climbed out. "Good evening, sir. Are you here for an event?" "The Richardson party," I said, handing him my keys. He took them like they might contaminate his white gloves. "Of course. just through the main entrance. Inside, the Belmont Club was exactly as I remembered: mahogany panels, soft classical music, the quiet murmur of money. The hostess, an impeccably dressed woman in her 30s, approached with a professional smile that wavered slightly when she took in my appearance. "Can I help you, sir?" "I'm here for the Richardson engagement dinner. Robert Chen." She checked her tablet, and I saw the moment she confirmed I was indeed on the guest list. "Yes, Mr. Chen. Right this way, please." She led me through the main dining room, and I felt eyes following us. A man in worn work boots didn't belong here, and everyone knew it. We entered a private dining room where roughly 20 people had already gathered, champagne flutes in hand. I spotted David immediately. He was standing with a stunning blonde woman who could only be Allison, talking to an older couple, her parents. Clearly, Allison's mother was dripping in tasteful jewelry, her father in a tailored suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. David saw me. I watched his face cycle through emotions: recognition, confusion, disappointment, embarrassment. He excused himself and hurried over. "Dad, you made it." His eyes swept over my outfit, and I could see him struggling to maintain composure. I thought, "Didn't you get my message about dressing up?" "This is dressed up," I said mildly. "I even cleaned my boots." David glanced around nervously. Several people were watching us. "Dad, please, this is important. These people, they're important. Mr. Richardson is a major client of our firm." "I'm sure they're lovely people," I said. "Shall we go meet them?" David looked like he wanted to argue, but Allison was already approaching, her smile bright and brittle. "You must be Robert." She air-kissed near my cheek, careful not to actually touch me. "David's told me so much about you. Come meet Mom and Dad." She looped her arm through mine, though I noticed she held herself slightly away, and guided me toward her parents. Up close, I could see the expensive dental work, the subtle cosmetic enhancements, the watch on Mr. Richardson's wrist that cost more than a new car. "Mother, Father, this is David's dad, Robert Chen." Allison's voice carried across the room, ensuring everyone could hear. "Robert, my parents, Harrison and Victoria Richardson." Harrison extended his hand. His grip was firm but brief, as if he didn't want to linger. "Robert, good to meet you. David speaks highly of you." "Likewise," I said. "Beautiful venue you've chosen." "Yes, well, the Belmont is practically family at this point," Victoria said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "We've been members for, goodness, 25 years now?" Harrison's father was a founding member. The history here is quite something. The subtext was clear. "We belong here. Do you?" "I'm sure it is," I said. "So, Robert," Harrison said, accepting a fresh champagne glass from a passing server. "David mentioned you're retired? What did you do?" "Construction. Started as a framer, eventually ran my own small contracting company. Sold it about 8 years ago." "How nice," Victoria said in a tone that suggested it was anything but. "And you're living in?" "North Vancouver. Same house my late wife and I bought 37 years ago." "Oh, how quaint. You must have quite a mortgage paid off by now." She laughed lightly. "In this market, even the most modest homes are worth something." She was fishing, trying to gauge my net worth through my real estate. I could have told her that house was worth $1.2 million and owned free and clear. Instead, I shrugged. "It's enough for me." Allison jumped in, her voice a touch too bright. "Robert, let me introduce you to my Uncle James and Aunt Patricia. Uncle James is a plastic surgeon, very prominent in the field." The next 30 minutes were a master class in subtle condescension. I was introduced around the room, and I watched each person make the same calculation. Worn clothes plus working class background equals someone who barely belongs here. The conversations were polite but brief. No one asked about my life, my interests, my relationship with David. I was a box to check. Met the father, moving on. I noticed David watching from across the room, his jaw tight. Allison kept him engaged with her friends, probably to spare him the embarrassment of his poorly dressed father. When we moved to the dining table, I found myself seated between an elderly aunt who was hard of hearing and a cousin who spent the entire time on his phone. David and Allison sat at the opposite end with her parents. The message was clear. Out of sight, out of mind. The menus arrived, and I scanned the prices. Appetizers ran $40 to $60. Entrees from $80 to $150. I watched Harrison order the Wagyu beef without glancing at the price. Victoria requested the lobster. Around the table, people ordered confidently, expensively. When the server reached me, I hesitated deliberately. "What's your most affordable entree?" She blinked. "Sir, all our dishes are." "The chicken," I said. "I'll have the chicken. And just water, please. No wine." I felt Victoria's eyes on me from down the table, saw her lean toward Harrison, whisper something, saw them both glance my way. David caught my eye. He looked mortified. The meal progressed in painful increments. Conversation flowed around me, but rarely included me. When someone did address me, it was with the kind of careful courtesy you'd extend to a simple relative you were obligated to tolerate. "So, Robert," Uncle James said during the main course, "with David doing so well for himself, you must be proud. Good thing Allison's family can help with wedding costs, eh? These affairs can be quite expensive." The implication hung in the air. You couldn't possibly contribute meaningfully. "David's accomplished a lot," I agreed, not taking the bait. "Indeed," Victoria chimed in from the head of the table, her voice carrying clearly. "We're so pleased Allison found someone from such a good firm. Though, of course, Harrison made sure to vet the partnership thoroughly before giving our blessing. Can't be too careful these days. There are so many young men who look successful on the surface, but are drowning in student debt or family obligations." Family obligations. She meant me. I took a sip of water and said nothing. "We believe in supporting our children properly," Victoria continued, "setting them up for success, not burdening them with supporting previous generations. Harrison and I established a substantial trust for Allison years ago. She'll never have to worry about money." The message was crystal clear. "We have money. You don't. Don't expect your son to support you." I saw David's knuckles whiten around his fork. But he didn't speak up. He didn't defend me. And something in my chest tightened. Then something happened that I hadn't anticipated. The dinner was winding down when a man approached our table, someone who'd been dining in the main room. He was perhaps 50, well-dressed, with the bearing of someone comfortable with wealth. "Excuse me," he said, addressing the table generally. "I don't mean to intrude, but I couldn't help noticing. Robert Chen?" I looked up, and recognition clicked. James Whitmore. We'd sat on the Vancouver Children's Hospital Foundation board together for 3 years. He knew exactly who I was. "James," I said carefully. His face lit up. "I thought that was you. Gentlemen, ladies, I apologize for interrupting, but I had to say hello. Robert, I haven't seen you since the gala last spring. How are you? Still managing to stay anonymous with your generosity, I hope?" Every eye at the table locked onto me. "I'm well, thank you," I said quietly, modest as ever. James turned to Harrison. "I hope you know what a remarkable man you have joining your family. Robert here has been one of our hospital foundation's most generous benefactors for years. Though he insists on anonymity, which makes thanking him properly quite difficult." Victoria's face had gone still. "I'm sorry. There must be some mistake." "No mistake," James said cheerfully. "Robert's contributions have funded an entire pediatric wing. His late wife, Margaret's name is on the memorial wall. In fact, one of the most generous donations in the hospital's history." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Good to see you, my friend. Don't be such a stranger." He walked away, leaving a silence in his wake. Harrison cleared his throat. "Robert, I don't understand. You said you were in construction. You're dressed like—" He gestured vaguely at my clothes. "I was in construction," I said. "I sold my company 8 years ago for $7.3 million. I've invested conservatively since then. Currently, my passive income is approximately $135,000 per month. I live in a house worth $1.2 million, owned free and clear. I drive a Honda because it's reliable, and I don't see the point in expensive cars. I dress like this because these are comfortable clothes, and honestly, because I wanted to see how you'd treat someone you perceived as poor." The silence deepened. Victoria's champagne glass trembled slightly in her hand. "You tested us?" Allison's voice was sharp. "I observed. I corrected. And what I observed was a family more concerned with appearances and wealth than character. You treated me with barely concealed contempt from the moment I walked in, not because I was rude or unkind, but because my clothes weren't expensive enough. Because you assumed I was poor. Dad, David started, his face flushed. I stood up, pulling my worn jacket from the back of my chair. David, I love you. You're my son, and I'm proud of the man you've become. But tonight, you let these people treat your father like an embarrassment. You didn't defend me. You didn't tell them that worth has nothing to do with what's in someone's wallet, and that disappoints me more than anything they did. I turned to Harrison and Victoria. I appreciate the dinner invitation. The food was excellent, but I won't be contributing to this wedding financially, and I won't be attending if this is the family my son is joining. A family that measures people in dollars and cents. Mr. Chen, please, Harrison said, standing. We didn't mean we wouldn't have if we'd known. That's exactly the problem, I said quietly. You wouldn't have treated me that way if you'd known I had money, which means your courtesy is for sale. That's not the kind of family I want my son connected to. I walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard chairs scraping, voices rising in confusion and damage control. I heard Allison's voice, sharp and panicked. I heard Harrison trying to restore order, and I heard David. Dad, wait. I stopped in the doorway but didn't turn around. I'm sorry, David said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. You're right. I was embarrassed, and I shouldn't have been. I let them treat you like you were less than them, and that was wrong. It was so wrong. I turned to face my son. His eyes were red. The question is, I said softly, what are you going to do about it? David looked back at the table, where Allison stood with her parents, all three of them watching. Then he looked at me. I'm going to make the right choice, he said. We left the Belmont Club together, father and son. Behind us, I could hear Victoria Richardson's voice raised in indignation, Allison calling David's name. But my son didn't look back. In the parking lot, waiting for the valet to bring our cars, David spoke again. I need to end this engagement, don't I? That's your decision, I said. But I'll tell you what your mother would have said. She'd have said that the person you marry should love you for who you are, not what you have. And they should respect the people who raised you, regardless of what they're wearing or driving. Character matters more than appearance. Always. David nodded slowly. Mom would have been disappointed in me tonight. Your mother would have been proud that you're recognizing it now. That's what growth looks like, son. The valet brought my Honda around first. As I climbed in, David leaned down to the window. Dad, why didn't you ever tell me? About the money, I mean. I smiled. Because I wanted you to build your own success. To value work and achievement for their own sake. Not because of what I had. And you did. You became a lawyer because you wanted to. Earned every promotion. Every case. That's worth more than any inheritance I could give you. Will you forgive me? Already have, I said. That's what fathers do. I drove home through the rainy Vancouver streets, my old Honda's wipers squeaking rhythmically. When I got home, I made myself a cup of tea and sat in the living room that Margaret and I had furnished together 40 years ago. The furniture was outdated, the carpet worn, but it was home. My phone buzzed with a text from David. I told her it's over. You're right, I deserve better. Thank you for being a real father, not just a provider. Love you, Dad. I smiled and texted back. Proud of you, son. Your mother would be too. The truth is simple, really. Money doesn't make you classy. Behavior does. You can have all the wealth in the world, but if you use it to look down on others, you're poor in the ways that matter most. Conversely, you can have very little materially, but be rich in character, kindness, and integrity. I learned this lesson over 40 years of building wealth. True success isn't measured in bank account balances or investment portfolios. It's measured in how you treat people when you think they have nothing to offer you. It's measured in teaching your children values that last longer than money. It's measured in staying true to yourself regardless of what others think you should be. The Richardsons failed that test. They revealed who they really were when they thought I was someone they could dismiss. And in doing so, they lost the chance to be part of my son's life. David deserved better. He deserved a partner who would love him even if he lost everything tomorrow, who would respect his family regardless of their bank statements, who understood that wearing work boots doesn't make you less worthy than someone in designer heels. Sometimes the most powerful truths come from the most unexpected places. Tonight, those truths came from a man in a flannel shirt and worn khakis, sitting in a room full of people who mistook poverty of appearance for poverty of character. They learned the hard way that you can't judge a book by its cover. More importantly, My son learned that lesson. And that's worth more than all the money I've ever made. Because at the end of the day, we're not remembered for what we accumulated, but for how we treated people along the way. We're remembered for the values we modeled, the integrity we maintained, and the love we showed especially to those who couldn't offer us anything in return. That's the legacy Margaret and I built together. That's the legacy I'm leaving to David. And that's a legacy that will outlast any investment portfolio, any real estate holding, any bank balance. True wealth is knowing who you are and staying true to that, regardless of who's watching or what they think. True wealth is raising children who understand that respect and kindness aren't negotiable, regardless of someone's social status. True wealth is being able to walk away from people and situations that compromise your values, even when it's difficult. I've been truly wealthy my entire life. It just took the Belmont Club and a dinner with the Richardsons to prove it.